Hello there, and welcome to my Arty Corner on YouTube. It's Thursday, the 20th of June. It happens to be the summer solstice if you're north of the equator, or winter solstice if you're south. And it happens to be cloudy here, mostly cloudy. There's some tiny patches of blue between the wispy clouds and the not so wispy clouds here in the South Wales valleys in the United Kingdom. And it's quite warm out, actually. It's not boiling, but it's warm. It's warm enough to have bare arms and a light cottony dress on and whatnot, and to be comfortable, which is great. So I thought I'd pop on in an impromptu manner. Um, I did wake up this morning with a bit of a headache, more than a bit of a headache. It's an introvert hangover from spending time with people. I had to be with people last night, and even though I was only there for a couple of hours, it's completely drained me. I had people who needed talking to and help and advice given for problems in life, because that's what happens to me, is I seem to be treated a bit like an agony aunt by all in one way or another. Don't know, it's got it written on my forehead in ink for people I think who need my help. And others, it was just chatting about how circumstances were and, listening and making suggestions for things and what have you, the usual kind of thing. I don't do small talk. I don't generally. I know I mention the weather because that has an impact on my mood and my energy levels as much as anything else. But I thought I'd jump here. I hate saying jump on because I don't jump. I thought I'd make an appearance here, an impromptu appearance on another live stream, and to work on this drawing, maybe start another. Depends how I feel. I have got a new light for my desk that shines quite bright light across the whole area, and the camera is much happier with that. Although colours still look dark. Mind you, that could just be a function. The colours look dark on my computer screen, but I think that's because I tend to have the brightness of the screen lower than perhaps I need it. It could be. Because my eyes get tired looking at bright things. So this is where I left you the other day. I haven't done any more work to this, but if I remember rightly, I was adding twiddly bits in between these. So I shall continue, and I think I used an 03. Let me just test that out up here and see if that's correct. No, it's the 01 I used. The 03 is a bit thicker. And let's continue doing that with these sections where my weird brain cell-y things are, which I still like a lot. I'm tempted to add colour in those centres of them just to help to bring that out. I'm still not sure about these, and perhaps I'll just do a line of them along this edge and then do something else in the other spaces, perhaps just to compare and contrast the things I could do, although I'm very tempted to fill them in just with black, to be honest. Yeah, I am. I'm going to. There, decision made. Rather than the blue, because if I use the blue, then I would, I've got a brush pen in here. Excuse me for a moment while I hunt the brush pen. Oh, just bring your pencil case over here, Angela. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a funny afternoon. That's a brush pen, but I was hoping for a uni. I've got a white one of them, but I've also got a white one of them. Let me just check. Have I got a brush pen in the uni pins? No, not here. Hang on. Yes, I do. It's in my new set. It's lurking here. Excuse my arms going everywhere. There we are. I'll keep myself. There we go. Oh, look at that, glittery bits. I'll keep myself zoomed out for this, so that you'll just see the overall impression, because it's I'm not doing anything other than carefully adding black to these sections. Might have been sensible to use that purple to begin with, but I think this will give something that's a little bit different perhaps. And as it's a sketchbook page, it's all about trying things out and working out what you like and what you don't like. Just before I came upstairs and set up the new lamp and also a new camera stand, which is a lot easier to manipulate and move around than the other one, neither of which were very expensive. And I've got one as a standby or one as an alternative or when I finally get my back room downstairs tidied out and can set an alternative space for working down there, maybe for filming, because here I've got a window to my left and it can cause quite uneven light, but um, I'll see what happens because I like up here. It's light and it's airy, and I can always draw the curtains to limit the amount of light. Oops. Come on, Angela, remember, you're not filling it all in with black. But while I was waiting for a delivery, I was organising my Kindle library because I had an awful lot of books that hadn't been sorted out into categories. I find it easier to have categories than I do anything else, and it annoys me when I had something like nearly 400 books to sort out. There's still some there that I'm not going to sort out because I share my account with a friend, and so some of the books are more to their taste than mine, but an awful lot overlap between us, which is really rather good. So I've got tons of books to read, and I keep buying more. But I was watching a video yesterday on YouTube by, I think it was Helen Cryer. If I remember, once the video stream has finished and I can edit the description, I'll put a link in the description to the video I was watching. And it was really lovely because she was using pieces of painted papers or, paper that you use to clean brushes off on or to put excess paint on, with no idea of what you're doing, just to put colours together and to have interesting papers for collage or backgrounds, whatever you may want. And she actually used them to make little greetings cards in an aperture card. So you had a small square in the middle of it and cut it out. And I thought, oh, what a wonderful idea. So, because I always want to make cards, but whenever I try to make cards, I'm never happy with what I create. And I know that some people who've seen my card making efforts at times in the past will disagree with me on this. I'm going to put purple there in between these as well. So it's almost like this is perhaps the sky and we're going into space here, maybe, or whatever. I don't know. There's bound to be a story in this if I think hard about it. And I thought, what a lovely way to do this. And then she embellished the papers and added bits of collage on top of them and things like that just to make them more interesting. And the cards were lovely, abstract and lovely. Not all abstract, actually, as some of them were landscape paintings she'd done. And they were just sketchbook work, you know, in lessons or seminars, tutorials, things like that, workshops that where she'd been learning new things, experimenting and exploring. And she just decided to use them or make use of them because they weren't going to be used in any other way. And I was thinking, now that could be really interesting because I know I need to play around with watercolors a lot. I know I can end up with pages of colors and patterns, as I've done with distress inks, which could also work in this way. And then the embellishments could be very small and tiny, or, could be patterns across the whole of the section. So I was looking at that and thinking, gosh. And then I don't know what brought it to mind, but there's an artist called Danielle Donaldson, whose work I particularly like. It's very delicate, and I've got two books by her. I think there's only two. And again, I'll remember. Let me get a piece of paper I can write this on. Oh, we'll pop it on the back of this one. Okay. So, Helen Cryer, YouTube. cards, Danielle. I've seen her work on places like Instagram and so on. I'm not sure if she's not Instagram, Pinterest. So I know she's, it's been shared there as well of people who've done courses with her and been inspired by her. Um, but it wasn't until I was reading her book, or some of it, 'cause to be honest with you, I was reading about how to make books and the description she had there, like making sketchbooks or swatch books or whatever it is. And actually, it didn't make any sense to me. And I'm there going, but I'm quite bright-ish. But I think that for how to do these things, I think I need to see them rather than, oh, excuse me, just read about it. Um, but there's lots of eye candy in the books and lots of suggestions for tutorials and things like that. But one of the things that she likes to do is on the edge of her work is to add a strip of collage. Often the pieces are stitched together. I don't have a sewing machine, but glue's always also a possibility, or to hand stitch, because you can stitch through paper. You just have to make holes before you put your needle through where you want them. Well, that's what I do for control, and just use some embroidery thread, of which I have plenty. And I just thought that might be nice to do because I've got lots of art, a lot of art that I've done nothing with. It just sits here now. And lots of papers that I painted or I've done jelly prints on with no idea of what to do because they're fun to make. And I have like scrapbook paper, the designer series papers. I've got some of those. I've got some Tim Holtz and I've got some beautiful ones. Um, Otherwise, and I just thought it would be a nice way to use those and combine them in what I do. But to go back to where I started with this ramble, I didn't realize until I read the book how little Danielle Donaldson's works are and the sizes of paper she works on. They're tiny. She'll work on pieces sort of like 2 inch by 2 inch to create a whole drawing, or none are bigger than 5 by 7 inches. Don't ask me what that is in. Oh, actually, I can tell you what 5 by 7 is. That's about 13 centimeters by about 18 centimeters, a little bit short of each. But I was just fascinated with that idea and how small that she draws, and she draws with pencils, not pens, and uses those to add details and outlines and so on. So that's something I want to look into because, I'm currently at a stage where I'm in between contracts, which is good because it gives me time to not feel guilty about indulging myself in art instead of working. But I'm going to see what happens, and who knows? And the other thing is that myself and my older sister have decided that we're going to have a little competition when we visit each other, and we're going to hide cards or postcards for them to find for each of us to find at unusual times in our houses. And when she visited me, stayed overnight for the first time in years and years and years, in about 20 years, not long ago, she left me the most beautiful card of a raven. Um, raven painting a raven, and I've yet to frame it and hang it, but I will do. And so I've got a bit of a thing about ravens. Actually, all the corvid family. I love the antics of jackdaws and magpies outside. I can see them from my window quite happily. They're not very busy at the moment. I'm not sure if it's chick season or molting season or I don't know what, but they don't seem to be busy in the day very much. When I also made friends with a new cat last night. There's a new plain black cat in the street who was very friendly. Um, Actually pushed their way in while I was saying hello to the little black and white cat, Luna. I think she's Luna, and that actually looks really nice just there. Tempted to leave that one. I like the shape, so I'm going to leave that one, and I'll see if I can there's no other shapes that are similar here, so I'm going to leave that as an individual highlight, shall we say, unless I decide that it just looks out of place. I'll have a look when I've done all of this. But that could be a place where I've got purple in. So I was very happy to say hello to some kitties when I got home yesterday evening. I'm always happy to say hello to kitties. It's nice that they're friendly and they're not scared of me as well. The little black and white one was, but isn't usually unless there's another cat around, but they seem to be friends. The black and white one came to say hello to me before the plain black one did. Beautiful, beautiful cats, though. Well, I say that about every cat, so, but really lovely. And there's a fly just come in through my window, one of those big sort of like things that you get, the big black ones. Great. It'll find its way out eventually after buzzing me and dive bombing me a few times. Um, and hopefully I'll get to say hello to my niece's cats next week because we're going out for brunch and I've got to pick her up because it's on my way to where we go for brunch to a lovely cafe not far from me, which we both absolutely love. Now, this here is a really odd shape, and I don't know why that's there, but it's going to disappear. That's better. It's a nice thing about black, plain black. It can be very, it can hide crimes, as it were. I've mentioned this phrase before. The first time I've heard it was with Adam Savage, who's an amazing maker and made a lot of or some of the models used for filming ships and transport and craft and things in Star Wars films. Is it the first ones, or might not been the first series, but certainly like Phantom Menace, I think, and so on. And he has a channel on YouTube. And he said, "Oh yeah, well, there's always ways to hide the crimes. But that means when things aren't quite right, or what you thought was going to work didn't, you can always find ways to hide them. Sometimes it's just you might have to redo a paint job in a place. Sometimes it's to add a little bit of interest, like a greebly. A greebly is a little shaped piece that looks like something or suggests there's something there. It adds surface interest and detail. I'm sure there's a more technical description of what a greebly is, but or add a bit. There's lots of things you can do to disguise the crimes, as he calls them. And there's nothing wrong in doing that, because unless you tell somebody you did it, or you make such a bad job of it that it becomes the focal point of your art, then um, nobody's going to know. The secret is not to tell people. And of course, I'm one of these people who go, look at that, I made a mistake there, point it out. And if you can't tell there was a mistake there, I've done a good job. But to go back to Danielle Donaldson, she said she uses collage to hide her crimes, as it were. She didn't use that phrase, but little mistakes or things that are out of place. And you can get creative with how you cover these up or make them, because the chances are if you try to fix it directly, as I personally know, then you can end up with a space that, rather than being subtle, sort of like a subtle oops moment, you end up with something that says, "Oh yeah, focus on me. I'm obviously the wrong bit," you know. And I agree with that sometimes. So I've done here what I often give as advice is that I've gone away. I've had a day or so, or over a day, because I didn't do a stream yesterday, away from my work, away from this particular drawing, and I've come back to it and looked and gone, that does still look out of place, so it's going. Once I finish this area. It's great if you have a brush pen in your collection. It speeds up filling in areas so much. And if it's the same make and ink as others, it will cover up fairly well, any drawing that's underneath. It might still show through, but then we're going to I'm going to add little white stars to this later on to break this solid black up and to give some interest here. I could use purple. I've got some Jelly Roll Moonlight pens which are opaque, but I think I'm going to go with white because the only purple I want is in the background, not as a decoration as such. And if I was brave, or if I'd thought about it sooner, I could have got some gesso out, some white gesso to fill those areas in, but not feeling that brave. So that completely, you can, right, this is good. This looked very dark, but next to the black is quite light, into not as light as the white, obviously, but you can see that this feels a layer that's closer and this is much further away. And I like that contrast, which is pleasing to me, shall we say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this area. I'm going to add, let's try again. I'm going to add some graphite pencil. I've I've dug out my matte graphite, my pitch matte graphite from Faber-Castell. I don't know if you can see that on there. You can. This one's a 4B, and they are designed to be not as shiny as graphite pencils. I didn't like the shine over here, so they they might be noticeable to begin with that there's a difference in them compared to the other ones until I add colour over the top, and then the differences will just become one. I do have to be a bit more careful in how I add the graphite. It doesn't spread as easily because the binder for the graphite is different to what it would be for ordinary graphite pencils. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's more wax based or something else, but I'm just going to do this. All the black actually makes my creepy, cute, gothicy heart quite happy. I'll leave these for a moment. Oh, I'm gonna have to do something about all these wires that are under my desk now. So I've got another one. I'll work that one out eventually. There. So that'll do nicely. So I'm just going to blend them out. It actually does have that feeling or the look of being more waxy than an ordinary graphite pencil, but not all that sure. I'm definitely going to put that beautiful dark purple in. I did do some art yesterday. I was working on those sprites that I showed you the other day, and I made the decision that I was going to use pen to draw them, to draw the outlines in and the details, as the pencil just wasn't doing it for me. And I felt so much better when I saw the pen there. It really did make me feel so much better about it. So at the end of the video, if I remember, I will show you what they're beginning to look like. It's a slow process for me adding watercolor because I am taking my time and not rushing because it's quite new. So yeah, you can't really tell the difference between the sections. This is looking a little bit darker than the others, but I'm fine with that. And I'm just going to go and add shading everywhere. I want it in other areas of the page now. Making the shading really dark underneath these individual areas. And I am going to draw on top of this because the pen will work fine on top of this, I'm sure. That just starts to lift things up. I might actually need a little bit more here. Oddly, this 4B isn't quite as soft as the 4B pencil would usually be, but I'm fine with that. There we go, that's a bit better. All right, so what I'll do, hopefully, is zoom in so you can see me do individual areas. This I want raised above this section here, so I'm going to focus on putting shading to the right sides and above, but the whole of it is likely to end up just a little bit grey without much in the way of highlights, to be honest. But I do want to put some more grey in there. Just like that, just to keep the intensity of shadow there, to suggest we have got dimensionality. I'll put some shadow here, though, just on the inside there, as if this is above this section, and I am going to put a little bit of shadow there and there as well. Some here. I'll put that around the edge, like so. Let me just deal with that. I don't want to spread this very far into these areas because I do want them to feel they are domed up, perhaps a little bit just on the edge in places. And there you can see the difference that little bit of graphite has made. In here, I really do want quite a bit of shading. It's a narrow space and not much light would get in here. Like so. And then here, I want to bring out a sense of roundedness here. So just putting little bits around the edge, more in some places, and leaving a nice highlight. I'm just going to brighten that highlight up a little bit, but I am going to put more darkness around these areas and in there, and there, and there. That's better. And really, I'm just smoothing that graphite out so it looks blended in. And that then hopefully gives that feeling of this bit. Then I want this area here to be set back, to be a lower layer. So plenty of shading, just like this one. But we've got more space in areas to leave a lighter area. This one, the shadow here is going to be all the way around here because that does overlap this, which causes, for me, a bit of concern as to whether this is going to show up in any way. But we'll just work with it and see what happens. Trick is not to drag it out too far, is to keep that shading very close in. As there, and as here. I did add tiny little bits of grey to the top of those little bars there, and that's not looking too shabby. Okay, down here. The same, just put shading at the bottom and then closest to these sections, just so it feels that we've got some dimension going on. Not trying to move that grey out too far. Really do with a sharper tortillon. But it'll do. And again here, I'm going to want shadow around here. And I do think I'm going to put some shadow on that side. I also think I might put some shadow around this edge as well. So the highlight's up in the middle, and that gives me a more domed or curved feeling to the shape. It's a bit grimy in places, but then I quite like grimy and grungy. This is going to be interesting because I'm going to put shadow there and round the bottom there. I definitely want shading in here, and I'll have some here as well. But I'm not going to try and put shading really anywhere else. I just want to highlight on that. I've got some watercolor there that spilled over, but we can hide that with some pattern and so on. While I'm at it, let's go here. I'm going to have shading around my leaves under this stem here and on this side as well. And I'm going to put a little bit on the stem there just to bring that out. I'm going to put quite a lot around the leaves because I really want those to feel like they're floating above this. So we've got some of that happening. So as I learn or try new things out with watercolor, I will share them with you because I find watercolor both a fascinating medium but also tricksy for me to use. But I'm finding out that by using just very simple color schemes that I can get it to work for me. I love just the purple here. I don't feel I need anything else here for interest or any, whatever. It does it. I'm keeping the main elements of my drawing white and grey, white, black and grey, essentially. Then that adds interest to the whole thing and it helps to focus on that design. And it stops me from getting perhaps too fussy around the middle because I can get really fussy, as if you as if you may not have noticed. Like I do need a piece of kitchen towel because that's a good thing for me to put my hand on so I don't smudge what I've done. And I'm going to, and I also don't get mucky hands. A bit, come on, there we go, that's better. And I'm going to start to add shading to my tentacles. A little bit there. Again, I'm just going to put shading on both sides where I can. Where I can't, I'll just choose which side I think will be the best to have the shading on. Just to bring out that feeling that they are nicely rounded, plumptious tentacles. You can never call tentacles plumptious. Well, I just have, so it's a thing now, officially. Say hello to everybody who's here with me. It'd be nice. It's lovely to have you here. I don't feel like I'm chatting to myself quite so much by seeing people watching at the moment, which is fab. I know it's awkward. It's an afternoon and it's midweek, but I know I've got something else I've got to do this evening. And by the time I've done that, I won't have time to do any live streams before I go to bed. Now I found out that many of you like live streams and also that the live streams are saved so you can watch them back or complete watching them if you have to go, then that makes me feel happier about doing them. It also saves on the huge upload time of long videos as well, and the possibility that something could go dreadfully wrong as you upload. This is a long process, and I am rushing it, which I shouldn't really do, because I should learn to take pleasure in doing this. But perhaps I seem to be rushing it because I'm familiar with this process and how I like to add shading to my artwork. Even these white areas here need some shading. Okay, so here it's going to be around the outside of this. Put some in the middle, and here I'm going to put it shading there and the shading that side. I'm going to treat this the same, the shading at the base of these lines where they meet another line. Here shading where the shadow would be, and I'm going to use left and bottom on this side, and then here right and top, just to give the feeling that we've got some edges that will catch the light and the layers that are going on, just to help that dimensionality. Feel I would like to add some more shading around that, just to help to pick it up off the background. So I'm just going to do that with this pen, so like so. There you go. So that's those. If you can compare those to the tentacles down here, you can see how more dimensional they look and how much more highlight there is there. Again, I can go back and just add some more of this just to make some shadows much intenser. I think that should have been more intense, but it works. I'm just sharpening my pencil just to help with this. And I am going to go over the watercolor here just to add some extra shading, but let's do these as well. So that just helps to pick this up. I've got a white edge there, so I'll just do that. I'm not going to blend that in. I'm going to leave that as it is because, again, it just intensifies everything there. Sorry, autofocus, so it's not bobbing in and out. I think I forgot to do that. I have to make a list of things I have to do checklist before I go live or even record video. But I do want quite a bit of shadow there. Some shadow down here, down there as well, and here. Just going to blend some of this in so it's got a softer appearance, but I'm not going to blend it out too far. And I don't know if you noticed, but I actually used my pencil to add some of the shading so that I got shading where I wanted it or how far out I wanted it to go so I could stick to that. Here, I'm not going to bother using a tortillon. I'm just going to leave this exactly as it is. I've used the sharp or a sharper pencil point just to deal with that. And I'm going to do the same here. Rather than use a tortillon, I'm just going to use my graphite pencil just to bring out some shadows along the edge, just to help to bring some there. I may just do a little bit here and there, a little bit there, and perhaps into the bottom, just to soften it that little bit. I've got purple here, but this is where I'm going to make use of that because I know I'm going to want some shading at the edges of all of these. So that now becomes part of it. That's hiding the crimes. It's a bit darker than I'd like, but I'm okay with that. And I'm just going to add quite a bit of darkness underneath that particular line. Also under here, this section, I'm going to just create shadows where I can get my pencil in. I could do with a sharper point, but this pencil sharpener I'm using doesn't seem to want to give me that sharper point. I'm wondering if its barrel is full of sharpenings at the moment. That's why it's not working. No, it's not. Try again. Oh, yeah, it just needed a couple more turns. There we are. Don't be lazy, Angela. Okay, so that's looking not too shabby as well. So again, I just want some shading on this side round there. Just a little bit here. Very stylized nose. I don't do faces, but I can, as in drawing people's faces, but it seems that stylized faces like this are something I can do. And without thinking about it, it just appears. So I'm happy for that to happen. Just tidying up some of the highlights here because they're starting to look a bit smudgy. It's only when I look and see that smudginess that I want to go back and just take some of it up and just brighten things up again. There we go. So under here, we're going to have some shading, shadow. And I will just clean this up. And then by cleaning it up, it will sharpen the point again, hopefully. This is just sandpaper on a hardboard handle. There's layers of sandpaper here, but you could use an emery board or a nail file instead. And it means that you can renew the tip of your tortillon and remove, any colour that's on there as well. The other thing, if you've got a nice long, I could do with a longer one than this because this doesn't fit to the bottom anymore. But something like this, sort of like some kind of toothpick or whatever it is, cocktail stick or then just poke it down in the tortillon and you can push the tip out so it becomes pointier again as well. You might need, if you've got a straightened out paper clip, if you've got a big one, that would work. I haven't got any to hand at the moment. I'm just going to add some there. Again here, I'm swapping where the shading is part way around the inner mouth here. So in this section, I've got shading the ends at the bottom. Here, I want the shading at the top as if it's in shadow, like this upper lip is above, or is at a higher plane, as in not plane that flies, but plane of the image. And I'm doing the same here where I'm putting shadow underneath there, just to give that feeling of, again, just depth. And for the teeth, shading at the top and to the left of the top set, perhaps a tiny little bit down the right-hand side, because obviously we've got gums there that there will be shading in. On the bottom, I'm going to do it the opposite way round, just to give us toothy shapes. Again, it's just a hint of them. I don't need to put texture or anything else on. I'm not interested in making them realistic. I'm giving the hint of a suggestion that these really are teeth, and perhaps they've been sculpted with that curved shape on them, so there would be some shading like so. So that works quite nicely. We've got teeth, but I'm going to go back with this and just add just some more shading right at the very top and just down the side to the left and at the bottom here. And just to suggest that the gums, or the appearance of the gums is almost recede, the tucking back under there. Now I'm just going to use the tortillon just to smooth that graphite out a bit. So, and it may not be perfect, but it works for me. There's a smashing set of gnashers there. Oh, if only I had teeth that good. There's no canines though. I'd be happy without canine teeth. There was a time, about 20 years ago, where I was considering having my canine teeth made a bit longer and pointier just for fun. I didn't go through with it, but I was considering it. I was having my rebellious teenage years in my early 40s, I'm afraid. I never had rebellious teenage years, particularly. There was a bit of rebellion, but not much, going to a pub that I was told I wasn't allowed at when I was in the sixth form. Not that I paid any attention, I still managed to go there. It was a heavy metal bikers pub because I liked, sort of like rock and metal music at the time. I felt safer in that pub than I did anywhere else. I used to be able to go there. There was a time when I would go there by myself. It's long changed and gone, that particular pub. But I'd pop in there just for a Coke, or some kind of soft drink, not necessarily alcohol. And I knew I'd be okay then, that people would just chat to me and wouldn't try and pick me up. And the barman knew me, or the landlord knew me. And all was fine and well. In fact, I forced him to make me cups of tea one time when it wasn't common in pubs for tea and coffee to be made. I got them to do it. 'Cause, I could drink. Like a lot of people in their teenage years in the UK, especially, late, sort of like it's sort of like a rite of passage to go out and have a night out in a pub or a club when you were under 18. You weren't supposed to until you were 18, but it was kind of a rite of passage. And as long as you didn't cause problems, um, then sort of like a little blind eye was turned to you by landlords and the like, which sounds shocking, but that's how times have changed now. And so it was a kind of rite of passage, and I would drink myself to drunkenness, but not oblivion. And I never had hangovers in the morning. Only once did I, and it was quite disgusting. I think I've been drinking cocktails that night, and I was pretty grim. And they have milk in them or cream in them, and that's not a good thing to overdose on. But though I was feeling sick, I didn't have a headache or anything. I was always very tired, but looking back on it, that's the introvert hangover that I get, the burnout I get around people. I need time to recharge them, which is what I'm doing today. Just need a day today just to be a day where I can just recharge my energy and get prepared to get on with life. Not today, though. Definitely will need some headache pills, I think, because my headache's beginning to get a little bit worse. I think the surge of energy I had from breakfast at around midday is beginning to wear off. Possibly. I haven't had enough to drink yet today, but that's easy enough remedied. I've got to bring a drink up with me, didn't I? I'm going to have to make a checklist of things I need. I really am. Just going through here and just blending that graphite in, just to give those shadows at the base of these leaves. And in some places, I'm thinking, oh, it reminds me of pussy willow, which are I'm not sure if I think they're the female flowers of hazel, I think, or some, I'm sure it's hazel or some similar kind of tree that you get in the early spring. The catkins, the male flower, because they're the ones loaded with pollen. And so they dangle in the wind so that the wind spreads the pollen, you know, in all kinds of directions or whichever direction the wind is blowing. And the pussy willows are all furry and soft, and the hairs that stick out are there to catch pollen from the wind that passes, you know, through them or against them. In a very clever way of reproduction. That's because they do this sort of like in February-ish, February, early March-ish, when there's very few insects about, or there used to be, before winters seem to have got much milder here. But that, it's wind pollination by wind, which is rather fabby. So that's beginning to look rather cool. Hello, Trevor. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for saying that. I didn't like what I'd done with these sections, if you remember, all the coffering and stuff. I just didn't like it. It was beginning to get fussy. So I decided to do black. But then it's created even more dimension in this because the black has pushed everything backwards. The color over here is really nice because it feels that we're closer than this here. I am going to put white dots in or shapes or patterns for a suggestion of stars. And at the moment, I'm just going through this and adding graphite while I am wielding a Pitt graphite matte pencil from Faber-Castell. It's a 4B. And doing all of that before I add any more pen work, because I think it's nice when we've got the shading in, we can see just what everything is like. I'm just being mindful of where I need to put shadows here, because I've got these leaves. So I hope you're fine and well today. And it's lovely that you could join me and said hello. It's great. Thank you. It's very much impromptu. Yes, you did. I am thinking about adding colour in these, just to add that pop of colour and leaving them like this. So I may use yellow ochre, I may use gamboge. Gamboge is my favourite. It's not as on the earthy side, it's a bit brighter. And of course, yellow and purple are complementary colours. So they would really bounce against each other. They might not be side by side, but they would look rather cool, I think. I shall see when I get there. I can't really add yellow ochre on top of the black though, because it really wouldn't show up. But I quite like the black, to be honest. It's very dramatic. I realised that I didn't like what I'd done, but rather than not finish this or give up on it, I thought I'd use it as a space to play around and see what ifs I can create and just see what happens, which is the beauty of having a sketchbook because sketchbooks are they can be for perfect work and finished work, which I have plenty of in sketchbooks, but they can also be places where you just play around and try new things and give yourself permission to do things without any expectation of success or perfection. just to practice, just to enjoy the process of creating. I hope the sound is okay, and I'm really hoping that the lighting is much better because I've got a new lamp on my desk that lights a large area. Yeah, you've gotta keep them separate, purple and yellow, but when they're next to one another without going into one another, they really vibrate against each other if you get the colours just right. Um, I love complementary colours like that. I always have done. In fact, when I was teaching, the head of art at the time, and this was before I did any art particularly, I used to do quite irreverent cartoons of things that were talked about in the in the staff room and so on, and and various other things, and they brought much hilarity to the staff of the staff room. I don't think the head teacher at the time was very pleased, but I don't care because he was a bit of a knob. Um, and it was a way of letting off steam and frustration at, the system, as it were. And he could get really uppity about silly things, you know? But my posters in the corridors and in my room, they always, well, not always, but the ones in the corridor, they were always a background paper and a border, and they were always complementary colours that were really bright and vibrant. And I always had a knack for making things eye-catching, which wasn't to say other people's weren't, but I think I took the biscuit in terms of colour. And the head of art at the time, lovely, lovely man, I miss him very much. He sadly developed brain cancer and passed away quite quickly from it. And it was so sad because he was somebody who encouraged me and would chat to me about things um, quietly when other teachers weren't around because that staff room I went into was a very sort of boisterous and quite male dominated one. I'm going back, gosh, 1988, 89, so a long time ago. And when I first went in there, and but more women started going in there. I think I was one of two or three who went in there to begin with, and there were more who joined in later on. But then, as people began to retire and leave, or you know, then the makeup of that um, staff room changed, and I didn't go there anymore. I found it a very unusual and awkward place to be in because, as awful as some of the conversations were in there, the women that were there, we gave as good as we got. But then the more women that went in there, the more talk there seemed to be of families and babies and things like that, things I'm not interested in. Um, you know, you could, yeah, and there wasn't as much of a laugh going on. But yeah, so he encouraged me to be creative and say things, um, you know, and I'd give as good as I got in there, as much as I could, or paid no attention to what people said. And as they got to know me and I them, I think there was a lot more understanding because I certainly am. Well, we're all one of a kind, but I certainly wasn't what they expected, put it that way. And I was much better at making jokes and so on if I had a partner in crime. And the head of music at the time, she and I, we would, I might have a free lesson and she'd be back and forth with reminding me of things to add in or suggestions for what to do, or funny, we'd work out funny rhymes and things for these cartoons. And she actually now has all the collection of cartoons that I drew. I really didn't want them. I'd left the school and I wanted to leave it behind me when I left. But she managed to retrieve them, I think. And well, she did manage to retrieve them when I was on long-term sickness, and nobody else would find them and destroy them because there was a new head of science at the time who might not have been quite as appreciative of my sense of humour. The culture had changed so much there in some ways. But as I said, it was a way of letting off steam. It wasn't really irreverent, it was just funny. but, you know, times change. So and I was surprised at how easy I found it to create these cartoons. And looking back on it, I actually did a pretty good job in my own way. And from somebody who thought been told and been, all through life that I was useless at art, suddenly being encouraged to be more artistic. You know, my illustrations for science were looked at and, um, commented on at how good they were and how unique my style was. And, pupils in my class wanted me to draw a duck that they could say draw a duck in their book because for whatever reason, might be learning about how we classify life into, vertebrates into mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, reptiles. Then they'd want to add examples of these animals to their notes. Special needs classes, certainly, because the illustrations would really help to remind them. And so I'd be there just drawing quite quite a stylized duck on the board, but one that was recognizable as a duck, just not a generic bird. And the kids thought that was amazing. They followed along step by step and created something that was amazing too, that they were proud to say, "I didn't think I'd be able to draw a duck, miss, but you helped me. Thank you." You know, and they did amazing stuff. And I taught a lot with pictures and stories and words. I never stopped doing that throughout. It's my natural way of teaching, which is, I think, is what happens here on YouTube, is I tend to tell stories more than I do anything else, as well as, giving instructions and so on. But I hope I try to show and give an idea of my thinking and how I do things so that you can gain an understanding and apply it to your own work. And, try these methods out and see if it works for you. And I'm annoyed at the graphite at the moment, not because it's untidy or anything like that, but just because it's graphite. I'm still trying to accept the use of graphite here. And I may very well do one day. And I think color with it would make the whole difference. But I know if I start adding too much color, we're going down a very deep and very dark rabbit hole into I hate this. I'm never going to do this again in my head. And I don't want to do that. I think some extra color will help here, as will some patterns and textural patterns, because at the moment everything's sort of like it's mainly white and grey with black. And so the grey stands out as being particularly grimy in my mind. Right, I missed that one out. Oops, bang crash wallet. Yeah, sketchbooks are a kind of diary. I like them. I usually have quite a few on the go at once for whatever reason. They and I try to remember to make notes. I'm not always good at doing that. It depends how I use a sketchbook, because with me, once I start drawing, something ends up as a finished piece of art often. And I don't use them often enough just for trying things out as a sketchbook, though nothing I ever do is really a sketch. So, but that's my issue, my problem more than anything else. But there we go. So that's there's some dimension going on here. I'm just going to look at where I might need to add a bit more shading. Along there I do. Anywhere else? Not really there. It's just all these damn dashed leaves here now. Part of me thinks I could use coloured pencils or maybe little bits of watercolor down here using a Payne's grey to add some shadow. But the areas are so small, I wouldn't trust myself not to fill it all up with the same colour of grey. We'll see. I do hanker to add some yellowy green to these, but I'm not going to. No, I'm going to limit my use of colour. So once I've got all the shading done, this is the very last bit, I will add some colour and then I'll start working on the black and white for a little while. I'm just looking, how long is this now? It's just over an hour. It's nearly 4 o'clock. And I do need to cook something wholesome for myself today. Not quite sure what I'm going to do. Something quick and easy, I think. Got some nice veggies. So I've got ready prepared because I can be a bit lazy at times. Well, the thing is that they're there, then I can just, I haven't got an excuse to say, well, it's going to take me too long, even though it doesn't take me long. It's the way my mind works. I always think everything takes so long. And yet when I do it, I realize actually that didn't take so long. To time myself. But I've got, what's the mix? It's broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. I can eat broccoli, cauliflower, and it doesn't set off IBS. I don't know how my IBS has settled down, but it has. I think I've put it down to taking probiotics and trying to eat a lot more fruit and veg, which I eat a lot anyway, but mainly that. I've avoided oat and oat products, and that seems to have helped greatly. So oats are a big no-no for me, which is sad because I do love my porridge. But I will find something else I can make porridge with, no doubt, when the season comes around for porridge. And even gluten-free oats. It must be the kind of fibre they've got in them or the kinds of sugars, carbohydrates, I don't know. But I will look into that. I want to make a note of that as well on my notes for things to do after this. So that's all my shading done. I can't see anything I haven't shaded, but I know I can always come back later on with more shading. Just put some things out the way here because I brought a big pencil case over here and I need to put that to one side. Sorry, I bashed my table and the camera's wobbling. This isn't the most stable of tables. I have got my water. I've got my Rosa Gallery watercolors, and I've still got purple here from the other day, but I'm going to need to mix some more up. I need a fairly decent sized brush. Size that one. It's a 2. I really want a bigger one. That's a 3, so that will do. So I am going to get some more. That's not purple, that's blue. Idiot. It's okay though, because a little bit of blue won't make much difference. Yeah, well done, Angela. That is now indigo. Good job. Yeah, and I'm off screen as well. Right, let me zoom out so you can see what I'm doing. Zoom in once more and then out we go. Hopefully. There we go. You can see the whole of it. Right, so purple. My purple is here. So I will just put some purple down here, more water, and I will pick up some of that indigo because I believe I added indigo to my purple the last time I was here. There we go. Want to just add some water. So I've got more of a wash going on here. And then I'll start with this area over on this side. I'm just going to fill this in with some watercolor. And I will come back when they are getting quite dry because there's still quite a lot of colour in this. I just thought I had a wash of it. Quite a light wash, but I don't. Go on, there, you can go there. Good, 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 good. There we are. And then I'm just going to get some clean water. I've got some tissue paper in my hands. Well, Danielle Donaldson suggests keeping your kitchen towels or whatever you use to, kitchen towels, if you use them for watercolor, letting them dry once they're full of color and using those in collage to decorate pieces as well. So this is an O3 brush. It's got synthetic sable hair on it. And what I'm doing is I'm just dropping little bits of water in here to create that kind of speckledy pattern, as if there's something going on here, just to create that texture similar to elsewhere, and it's doing that. Okay, this area now, it's a biggie, but we'll be fine. This brush really does hold a lot more watercolor than I thought it would. So this is drying very quickly, so I'm just going to add some more. Get that going there. So I want more colour, so it's nicely deep. And then want it damp enough that it's not going to dry off while I clean my brush and come back with clear water. I might just go and add some indigo around the edge here just to bring out a darker area in this one because it's bigger. I can fiddle around with colours a little bit. That definitely is a bit more indigo. And then just going to clean my brush and then just start adding drops of water. Even going into the centre of these patches with a little bit more water just to help them perhaps bleach in the middle, just that little bit more. This side is already dried just about, but all's well. It'll be fine, she says. There we go. So that's all done. And then I've got this area down here to do. So I did that one first so that I could turn around and not get my hand in that one. I could have done this one first for the same reason, but you know. So I've got that one done. This one. This actually works nicely because it's almost like these areas are spreading, it's creating that kind of feeling of distinct plateaus. If only I'd done a bit more around this so I could get some purple there, but I think it's okay. So as these are drying very quickly, it's because it's so warm. Just dot some water in and then do this to another section and move on. Learning that I can work quite quickly with watercolors in this way, and that I can use really a lot of watercolor paint in with the water to get that intensity of color first or second go down. Sometimes I do need to put a second layer in like I've just done here. It all works. Just adding some there, and I'll add a bit more water in these ones just to help that bleach out a little bit, and perhaps a little bit there and there. Lot there, so I'm going to get a lot of this going now. I'll add some of the indigo to this one for the last section. And just make a start on filling this in. It's a large area, so I do want to work quickly so it doesn't dry out before I can do anything else. This I'm going to have to add more to. It's drying a bit too light for my liking, but I can do that, and I can come back and add some texture in a moment. This one is drying already, but it'll be fine. Part of me is going, Angela, you should have wet this water first, or paper, not wet the water's wet, because that's what water is, it's wet. Makes things wet. Is water itself wet? I'm not sure I know how to answer that question I've just posed myself. Is water wet, or is it just the sensation of touching water and the way that it wets things, sticks to things and makes them wet? Which you don't know. Right, let's just add some droplets of water in here. And then I'll go through this one and add water too. Bigger drops, because they'll bloom out and touch others quite nicely then. And just let that dry. Okay, next one. It's going to be, now I'm moving this round because I'm going to use quite a golden yellow, I think. I'm not going to use gamboge. Oh, heck, I've got some purple in there because I didn't clean my brush too well. Got enough, I think. That's fine. Just add some more water to it. And I'll have a look at that and see whether I want to add any other colours to that. I'm just going to use this lovely yellow. Yeah, my water's going baby poop. So I'm going to use this lovely golden kind of yellow. Couldn't tell you what it is because I've lost my swatch. I've put my swatch of these colours somewhere with their names on. So what I'm going to do is to drop a single drop of water in where I want the highlight to be, or that kind of area, so that it will bleach that out a little bit. I don't know what a blit is, but we're heading towards blits and blobs, blobs. I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's get some of the others done. I've said that this paper isn't watercolor paper per se. It is mixed media paper, but it actually works quite nicely regardless. It's good enough for somebody like me who is not a watercolorist, but likes to use watercolor to add detail to or interest to my art. So I've got all these golden globes. Isn't that an award of some kind, the Golden Globes? I think it is. I do want to go back to ones that are a little bit dry and just add some water just to bleach out an area. That's a lot there, but it'd be fine. And that will then dry quite nicely. Actually, on the screen, that looks quite good. Let me move this out the way just for a moment so I can move this up so you can see the hole. That's actually looking quite nice. It does look more orangey on my screen. And I'm thinking, do I want to add something gold over here? And the answer is I could make that there something that is gold, just that one. And I think that will make it sort of tie together because it could be that this comes around under down to here somewhere and joins in and creates gold here. Perhaps I could even add gold, this golden colour, I should say. It's not gold, but golden yellow down here, perhaps just a little bit, like so. Perhaps suggesting that this network of things that look like they're nerves connected actually are delivering some of that yellow power, energy, light, whatever it may be, to this section here. I'm just going to take that out. I'm just going to take a little bit of water out. I'm going to be patient and let everything else go. And I think that's kind of tied these together now. There's a kind of story there, not a perfect one, but I think it's good enough. Close those up. My brush away. My paints to one side, like so. Put the water out the way before I throw it everywhere, because I'll end up doing that. So we've got gold going on. And while I've got tissue out, I need to blow my nose. Excuse me. I had 2 asthma attacks yesterday and one not the day before that, when the skies have been sunny and there's been a lot of pollen in the air. I've never had that kind of thing since I've been diagnosed with asthma. I occasionally get it on very cold days. I get asthma with tree pollen, but never with flower pollen. I know that the pollen levels have been very, very high and unusually high, but no. Now my thoughts now are going towards, do I want to add more texture patterns or am I happy with this as it is? And to give myself some breathing time, I'm going to use this pen. It's an Arteza acrylic marker. It's got a plastic nib, which is quite fine. They will be like Posca pens. I have got a Posca pen, but these are much more affordable, obviously. So I'm going to add collections of white dots and put them in groups of 3. I'm not trying to make an exact pattern from them, but repeated pattern, just enough that this could be looking into a starry sky, just to break the darkness up perhaps, and perhaps I can put a lot more dots around or in an area here and just fade them out a little bit as we go further away. So it's almost like there's some glow coming off this. Shame I haven't got a yellow acrylic marker. I only bought white and black. But here's what it is. There we go. So in this one, perhaps just dotted around. That's round here, a lot closer, again, as if we've got a lot of glow going on. Perhaps not so much further away. And I'm making little mistakes here because the paper has buckled a little bit with the water, but I can work around this hopefully. Just try down here because that'll be dry. So again, let's have a look. Let's just go back and make some of these dots that little bit bigger just so there's more white here. So we get that brightness here and not so much elsewhere. And with these ones where I put the threes together, oh, that was a bad move, but is what it is. The nice thing about these acrylic markers is that they don't pick up this ink. I'm not sure about watercolor. They shouldn't really, but I think when they dry, if you're just dotting it on and not colouring on top of watercolor, I think they'll remain white. I'm sure they do. Here I've got another one where I need some bigger dots closer here just to put more white there, more brightness, and the same round here as well. And here. So I'm really quite happy with these Arteza pens. They'll certainly be on my list of things to buy again. Um, they work really nicely, and I am getting here some interest going on. So I'm not paying as much time as I could here. I need to slow down. I'm conscious of time and how much more I've got to do here, but I think I may do part of it so you can see what I'm doing and finish it off over the next day or two and post the finished image or not. Because if it's Sketchbook, I've done enough to work out what I need to have going on, really, don't I? Know what I would like to do with these is to put some white down the center of each of these black areas just to lighten those up that little bit. I like the contrast, but I've got a lot of black going on, and using white dots helps to bring coherency as well. It starts to tie lots of things together. Perhaps these are little dots of pollen. I don't know. Since I was talking about hay fever just now and asthma. Let's go here. Sorry if my hands are in the way. I need to pump this to get it flowing again because it stops. To do that every now and again because the paint will dry and block it up, but you just need to pump it and the paint starts flowing again. These have got a hard plastic tip, which makes it a lot easier to work with. I like Poscas, but the tip isn't quite the same. But they both work quite happily. Whichever is your preference, or if you don't have a present preference, whichever one works for you. Either, both, neither, because there are other brands on the market as well. I was just a bit excited when I saw Arteza have them. Now that has lightened that up and added those little bright accents as well. Okay, and I'm just using a bit of this edge here where I do like that. I do like how it's lifted these areas up. I like the way the black is behind it. It's real high contrast. You can't get any more contrasty than black and white. Again, I don't know if contrasty is a word. I'm just making it up as I go along, really. Being descriptive, which is fine. I will bring this to a stop very soon. Just wanted to do that. I am going to add a white highlight here for the eye, like so, which is very much needed. I'm also going to dot some little white dots on the highlights of these, just to bring out that brightness there. It'd be very subtle, but it brings a little bit of texture to them and suggests that they've got texture as well. It just adds a little something something, especially on ones where I haven't really got a very good bleaching effect. It just adds that. I'm wondering whether I should put white down the center of these, but I'm not sure it will show up because it's still pretty white there. And the only other things where I'm going to put white dots are going to be, come on, you can do this, in these sections. Now, this is beginning to get a bit on the mucky side, the point, so I'm just going to turn it, clean it off, give myself a good pump, let that flow, and come back to adding dots. Which is rather lovely. Glad I chose to do this. So even though it's very black, the white dots just help to make it not quite as uninteresting and boring, perhaps, as just plain black. But it's all good fun. Just gonna clean this here. Okay, let's have a look at pumping this to get some more. That's better. Run out of the paint. That's why it wasn't flowing quite so easily. So I think I may more or less leave this as it is for now, because I really don't know what else I want to do, other than perhaps some line patterns. I'll finish this off because there's something quite relaxing about stippling, adding dots and creating densities that suggest light and dark. And in other places, I'm just doing what I can to do that. This is a very small area, so that's okay. A bit more here, I think. Just a couple of sections left to go. Oh, just put my finger in one. "It'll be fine," she says. My brain is just working out or telling me that I had a very bizarre dream last night, and it was bizarre, goodness sakes. So for now, I think I am actually happy with this as it is. I'll look back on it in a day or 2 or 3 and see whether I want to add any more texture in these areas. I've got some there, so perhaps I should do some here to tie them together, to marry them up. But honestly, I'm quite happy. I could put some lines on these to suggest a bit more in the way of volume, but I quite like it as it is. So the only thing I really need to do is to put today's date, 2024, it's June, it's the 20th, and then my initials and a little tag sticking out, as it were, like so. And that will do it for today. I did say, "Hello, Sunshine. I'm glad you were able to join us." It's an early one. I've got a new lamp, so if people can let me know whether the lighting is better, let me know that the sound is good, let me know that the image is good. My camera is sort of tilted a bit awkwardly. Let me see if I can adjust that just a little bit. Uh, No, not today. It's stuck where it is, but let me know. And I think I've done this for today, though. What I do want to do, so I said I would show you these earlier on. So let me just pop that out the way. This is my Strathmore Mixed Media book. It's a big page. So let me just lift this up a little bit so we can see more of it. There we go. And in here, I've chosen to use this one for creepy, cute characters, or fantasy creations and creatures, perhaps some kawaii cute. And I don't know why sprites popped into my head, but they did. So I looked up sprites and found a little bit about them, but then I started drawing and I had no idea what I was going to draw, other than I wanted them to be woodland ones with sort of like butterfly or moth wings. And I did show them a few days ago where they were in pencil, but I spent some time yesterday inking the lines in, erasing some of the pencil, going back and adding some more pencil in terms of shading, because I wanted to put shading where the lines were as well. And then I've started watercoloring things in, and I need to add, white. So let's do a bit of white while I'm here, because I really want white lumps and bumps on these, or some whiteness. Come on, you've just been working, pen. Give it a shake, press it down. Come on, you can work. I'm sure you can. Yeah, there we go. So I just want to put some white paint in here, just to give me some white. Oh gosh, it's not working. Now this, it could be a downside of these, is if they gum up too quickly, I won't be happy. Sure, there's got to be more paint in there. I haven't used this much. It's not working, so we're going to the Posca. So there might be a downside to the Artezas, or this is. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, that one's working now. So I'm not going to try and colour in, I'm just going to dot these in because I know this will pick up watercolour. I can just add dots of white for highlight and for interest on these as if they are, you know, there's highlights on them. Excuse me for getting my hand in the way. That will help to bring certain features out like this. I was looking for some Sakura souffle pens yesterday and couldn't find them for a sensible price anywhere. White ones is what I wanted because they're incredibly opaque. They're also three-dimensional. They're sort of like waterproof and permanent, and they really do give a brilliant white highlight. And Cult Pens didn't have any. Other places just had one, and I tend to buy more than that, and they were really expensive. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to try and remember to have a little look and see whether, right, you have got some little fangs. You need some white lines on your fangs just to bring your fangs back. I'm going to make your hat nice and white. This might need a little bit of white there just to bring it out. So that's brought some white there. It'll need me going over these again, I'm sure, once this is dry, because it is the Posca pens are acrylic. The first layer often picks that watercolor. Having said that, I did have a delivery today, and I had got two opaque white inks. One is Zig white ink, high opaque ink, water-based pigment. There, and I've got some Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. Now, I'm not sure whether this one. Ooh, that's very thick and gungy. I think it's because it's paint, so I'm not going to try and use that. But I've got those because of the lack of the Sakura microns to try. So I shall see what happens. I'm a bit disappointed with this. I'm also a bit disappointed with the Arteza, to be honest, that it seems to have stopped functioning so soon after using it from brand new. Don't know what's happened there. Either way, at least it does put some white highlights on, and it is a sketchbook, so that's all that matters. So I've started adding colour to these. I do want to add highlights. Let's give this a go again. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Sunshine Star Child. That's nice to know that the light and sound are great. Hurrah, at last. It's taken me a wee while to get this sorted and, but I'm there now. And these can stay set up on my desk, so it's no longer a fuss and a bother to get everything out and set up and so on. I just have to remember to do certain things when I do this. So thank you very much for that feedback. It's really lovely. I don't know why I'm fussing around with this here and now, but I am. Oh well, I'm going to give up with the Arteza. It's just not working now. But these are my work in progress at the moment, and I'll be making use of the ink or the paint to add highlights and so on these. I have fun doing them, and what was even better was, as much as I sort of like them with pencil, but I much prefer them with the ink outlines. And I know that I can add pencil shading underneath the watercolor once I've put the um, ink pencil sketch, ink in, erase pencil, add pencil shading, then watercolor. And then if I need to, I can darken the shadows with more graphite and pen and lines and so on. But I really have enjoyed doing these, and I'm not going to say it's completely different for me because I keep dipping into the realms of of fantasy from time to time. But for me to actually do things that are from my own mind and imagination entirely is quite good for me. I'm not very good at sideways views. My hands and feet are dreadful, but they're wearing boots, so boots are fine. Boots are fun. Because sprites and fairies should wear big, heavy boots. These dainty little things. So I'm going to leave you with these and with this, because for now I feel this is finished. And I'm just going to say thank you, everybody, for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day. The video will be available to view in its entirety in the live section of my YouTube page, which if you go to, go to my, you'll find it. And I'll try and remember to scan this in either today or tomorrow, most probably tomorrow, so you can see that. And I look forward to seeing you again in my next live. Not likely to be tomorrow. I'm not going to do it every day because, I mean, this one's, an hour and 3/4, for goodness sakes. But I'm going to start trying to limit how long I spend because this really is getting used to YouTube Live, to the new equipment I've got. And I'll start doing smaller pieces of art with you as well that will take less time to do in their entirety. As I said earlier on in the video, I've been reading a book by Daniel Donaldson. I will put it in a description somewhere along with another with a YouTube channel that I found inspirational, the video particularly, for you to have a look at as well. Helen Cryer is her name, and it was about making cards from papers that either failed pieces of art, what you think are failed pieces of art, or experimental or sketchbook work, and doing something with it to make something that is useful. So I will see you again soon. Until then, please be creative. And once again, thank you for spending time with me. Bye bye for now. Hoil. Ta-ra.